friends, welcome back. Today we're going to be focused solely on shoulder straps. In the pattern, there's two different styles. The first, which I think most of you are going to go for, is the vest style straps as seen on the prototype pack. The vest style strap has dual water bottle pockets up front. It also has dual sternum straps that are designed to be women friendly. My wife really likes this setup and it's super comfortable for her. The alternative shoulder strap is the S style strap. This is a more conventional shoulder strap with foam on the inside, and it has two smaller pockets for snacks, your GPS, or your sunglasses. So with that, let's jump right in and I'll show you how to start the vest straps. So before getting into sewing, let's look at the prototype pack for the vest straps. The vest strap is made with a 3D spacer mesh, and you can choose which side goes against your skin. On the front side, the vest strap shell is made with a body fabric, and then the pocket, I use a stretch woven material very similar to Spandura, but you can use other types of stretch mesh. This here is a piece of shock cord and it serves as a bottle lanyard. That bottle lanyard goes around the top of the bottle here and keeps the bottle from falling into the pocket as you empty it. Depending on your sternum strap hardware, you'll be adding either webbing or piping along this inside edge. And the last thing to do is to tack on a tensioner to use as your shoulder strap. Alright, so for the stretch pocket, I'm going to show you doing that with a zigzag stitch. I went ahead and sewed this exaggerating the zigzag. For yours, make it a little tighter, but I wanted you to be able to see it on the camera. Alright, so I did my triple fold down, and I checked the height of the pattern piece to the paper. Again, make yours tighter, make it look better, but I wanted you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. To attach the shell to the strap, just use the alignment marks and line up your shell to the strap to where once you stitch it, you're able to fold this up and the right sides will be out. Next, you fold this up. Make sure you got a nice alignment here of the strap, the shell and the strap, and then do a top stitch along this edge. You won't have this seam here, I'm just using scraps to show you. With your lanyard, I'm just going to base that inside the seam allowance, and the raw edges will get covered when we bind the seam. So with your pocket, you want to start by going on the inside edge, and that way the pleat and the volume is over on the outside edge. Now I just noticed that I sewed my pocket the opposite side, so this one should be on the other strap. But again, this is just for demo. I'm just not doing a very good job of demoing it apparently. As you come around the bottom, make sure that you pleat the pocket so that the edge of the material is over here. So I went and I cleaned up all the seams. To finish off this vest strap, you just need to edge bind it using a bias tape. For those of you who aren't into the vest straps, this S-strap alternative has a nice set of features as well. They have matching stretch pockets sized for snacks, sunglasses, or your phone, and they're stuffed with foam for comfort and rigidity. The underside of the strap wraps around to the front so that this seam never chafes along your neck. These are designed for a single sternum strap, and the webbing is hidden underneath the pockets. Just like the vest strap, we use a ladder lock for the tension strap, and then a corner block turns into this wedge that you sew into the side of the backpack. I'm preparing the pocket by putting a piece of fold-over elastic on top of the strap pocket. So I've pinned it on, and I'm going to run a zigzag stitch along the length of this elastic. So there we have our elastic attached to the top of the pocket with a zigzag stitch. And as I was feeding it, I was just trying to keep this as straight as possible. The elastic will want to make it kind of curl. So I wasn't stretching the elastic. I was just trying to keep it straight. But with the zigzag stitch, you can see that it stretches just fine. Alright, I'm going to try my best to explain this, but it might be a little complicated. Depending on the type of sternum strap hardware you're using, I'm using these little clips that hook onto webbing. I need to attach that webbing underneath the pocket first. So just make sure that the webbing doesn't get into the seam allowances on the side. Down at the bottom, you can go ahead and baste it into the seam allowance. That's okay. The way to set up this pocket is first you fold the pocket in half. The top of the elastic will be a little bit lower when you fold it over. There should be a gap here. Now this short edge, where you see this corner, that's the width of the end. So all this extra material needs to get pleated inside this distance. So I folded it over, and you can see here I've pleated all that extra material And then that ends up being the seam length on this end. Use your marks, your alignment marks on the back, for where this pocket comes across. That's the top edge. As the elastic comes around, it will be lower by about 1 inch than the top edge. That's so it's easier to get into. All right, so let me try to show you what a pre-assembled pocket looks like. First, you see the bottom caps the seam along here. So that's a nice finished seam there. You could top stitch this if you want to. I opted not to. This whole side is open, and the pleat for all this excess material is nice and clean. This side is just edge stitched within the seam allowance all the way up. And then I came across the top here and put a stitch. Underneath, you can see I stayed out of my seam allowance on this inside edge, right? Because this is going to get flipped. And then I put a securing tack, a vertical tack, right here where the pocket is, just to keep that pocket from tearing out. Over here, you're edge stitching within the seam allowance, so that's okay. I've now sewn my two parts together. And on here you can see that I'm either right on my seam allowance or I'm just inside it. You don't want to be proud of your seam allowance, otherwise the foam will be very difficult to get in. So here, up here where this material is, this is actually supposed to be kind of baggy up here, and that's because this material will actually fold over to the top a little bit, which you'll see when the strap is done. So then the last thing I did was I went around and I kind of reinforced some spots, and then I trimmed some of the seam allowance away where there's curves. So in some of these areas, I'm going to put some little relief cuts so these curves fold under nicely, and then I'll be ready to get the foam in. All right, so I got my foam trimmed out, and really there's no way around this. This is just awful. So take your time, curse a lot, and you'll eventually get this foam inside that strap. So for the corner block, take one of your 4x4 inch squares and cut one of the corners off. I measured down 1.25 inches and struck a line, and that's going to be for 3/4 inch webbing. Fold it wrong sides out, right down the middle, creating this shape. And then slide your webbing along the fold line to just tuck out a little bit on the other side. Now we want to sew about an 1 to 3/4 inch back from that edge. We're going to sew along there. We're going to come over to this side, and then we're going to sew parallel to the edge. What you now want to do is trim off the seam allowance that's not on top of the webbing, and then pull this to be right sides out. Now lastly, you want to make one more securing stitch or bar tack through the webbing about 3/4 or 1/2 inch behind where it's currently sewn. Now one of the last things to do is just tack on your ladder lock, and I like the ladder lock to tack right below you can feel the seam allowance from the pocket originally, and I like this ladder lock to not hang too far off the ends. So you can see on the underside it's just a single tack. The ladder lock is held in place.